This video has been a long time coming. A little over a year ago, I released a video called Korblox vs. Redcliff, an analysis of the official clans of Roblox. To this day, it's the longest video I've ever released, and the goal of it was to cover the complete lore and history of those made-up fantasy brands you've probably seen on the catalog from time to time. The most popular ones are Korblox, Redcliff, Knights of the Splintered Skies, and Wizards of the Astral Isles, and they were the main focus of that video. Each one of these brands, believe it or not, has a dedicated roleplay group and several roleplay games attached to it. And these groups make up the Loreverse, a team of each group's most active members that's been working tirelessly for all the years these brands have been around to keep and flesh out agreeable canon lore for each of them. Everything from their hierarchy to the environment that they live in to their most important figures. But for how long that video was, it still wasn't even close to comprehensive. I covered all the major brands, sure, but there are many more minor brands that exist on the catalog, most of which also have lore of their very own, though less of it, that I didn't really cover as much. If you're a catalog nerd like me, you may recall seeing names like Dark Age Ninjas, Emerald Knights of the Seventh Sanctum, Arinthians, and Nakaticas floating around, and one search of each of those brands and groups will reveal a rather large community dedicated to keeping that brand alive, just like with the major ones. I tried my best to make it clear in that video that I was aware that there were clans I neglected to go into detail about. That was simply because the video was already long enough just talking about the main four, and the lore of the lesser groups isn't really fleshed out enough to contribute to the main lore in any significant way, and I think for the most part, all of you who watched that video understood that. But there was another clan that I failed to mention in any meaningful way whatsoever, and I'll be the first to admit, that was a bit of a blunder. The Overseers, a band of black and green clad eyeball-covered death knights that have permeated the Roblox catalog for years, with dozens and dozens of accessories sporting their name and classic color scheme. While the other lesser clans did receive passive mentions in my video, I think I only dedicated like one sentence to the Overseers, if any. And you guys noticed. I still get comments all the time being like, "You forgot the Overseers, why didn't you talk about the Overseers? Do a video about the Overseers." And look, I'm super glad you guys want me to talk about the Overseers so bad. The whole point of that video was to stir up interest in the lore groups, and the amount of interest you've shown in the Overseers is enough to make a giant green eyeball cry, and then probably drown everyone in a 5-mile radius. But there's a reason I didn't mention the Overseers in that video, and it's a reason that I don't think you guys are gonna like. It's pretty disappointing, honestly. I can't really talk about the lore of the Overseers because the Overseers have no lore. As you know if you watched my original lore groups video, the original fantasy brands were introduced in a series of blog posts made by former Roblox administrator Sorkas. The purpose of these blog posts was for him to announce some cool new Roblox accessories and test run some ideas he had for a fantasy novel he was writing at the time. That's where the original lore for Korblox's empire, the Knights of Redcliff, the Knights of the Splintered Skies, and the Wizards of the Astral Isles came from, as well as the Dark Age Ninjas, the Emerald Knights of the Seventh Sanctum, and later, during a set of futuristic sequel posts, the Arinthians and Nakaticas. Roblox administrators then created official Roblox-backed groups to represent these brands in preparation for a massive war event they were planning to market these brands even more, which sadly fell through, but to this day, all the major lore groups are still owned by Roblox admins. How active those admins are in them is a different story, but they're still technically official Roblox-backed groups. Nowhere in these blog posts, though, is there any mention of the Overseers. They don't contribute to the fall of the Wizard Tower in any way, they're not mentioned as allies of the Korblox like whoever wrote the description for their Roblox toy seemed to think. They're not even mentioned as side characters waiting in the wings to do something like the Emerald Knights of the Seventh Sanctum. They simply aren't there, and unfortunately, that means they never got a Roblox-backed group to create lore for them. And that makes sense, because these blog posts were written in 2011. The first Overseer accessories wouldn't make their way onto the catalog until 2012, and when they did come out, they weren't dropped with any fanfare whatsoever. No epic story to tie them in with, no creation of a new official lore group for them, they were just plonked onto the catalog like any other accessory would be. There is no lore to be talked about. Or is there? One of the Loreverse's main rules is that Roblox is the primary authority behind these lore groups, and as long as it tracks with the majority of the already established lore, any lore that Roblox releases, no matter how small, is canon. This could come in the form of blog posts, accessory descriptions, advertisements, events, pretty much anything. And while Roblox never released any blog posts surrounding the Overseers, they've released plenty of accessories, each of which gives us a bit of a look into what the Overseers are like. There was also once a massive community effort from the Loreverse to grow their own roleplay group for the Overseers and get a Roblox admin to take ownership of it, which unfortunately never panned out, and I'll get into that later, but for now just know that its remnants contain some very juicy information. So what I want to try to do in this video is assemble everything we know about Overseer canon into one place, and then connect it together as much as possible to figure out the true lore of the Overseer Empire. One of the best ways to get an idea of the Overseer lore, I think, is to take a look at the accessory line. That's where the Overseers got their start, and that's where pretty much all of the information about them that Roblox has given us lies. So, let's start at the beginning. On May 25th, 2012, Roblox uploaded a new package, or as they're called nowadays, bundle, to the catalog. It was called the Overseer, and like most packages at the time, only people with Builders Club, premium nowadays, could purchase it. It was 1,500 Robux and timed to go off sale after 4 days, but once it did, it was placed back on sale for 2,000 Robux, which is the price it remains at to this day. Its Builders Club exclusive status was also removed after the October 2013 de-exclusivity of almost all packages. It really wasn't very accessible for the vast majority of Robloxians when it first came out, but despite that, it soared straight to the top of many Robloxians' dream items lists, simply because it looked so cool, and still does to this day, honestly. The textures and meshes are all super detailed and varied, the color scheme is excellent, and it just simply looks powerful and intimidating. I love the sharp-clawed hands, the green magma flowing through rock look, the big, wide, muscular build, and especially the signature green eyes on the breastplate, which complete this package perfectly. The description reads, "The listeners, the seers, the hands of justice report to one man. This man." This suggests that the Overseers are a race of beings that are superior to everyone else, possibly possessing godly powers, and constantly keeping tabs on everyone below them. Now, if I know my audience as well as I think I do, I'll bet at least a couple of you have already gone straight to the comment section as I was saying this to tell me, "No, Nitro, you're wrong. The first ever Overseer item wasn't the Overseer package. It was the Overseer's minion hat from 2011. Everyone knows that. It even says so on the wiki." Well, I'm here to tell you that you're actually wrong, and the wiki is actually pretty stupid sometimes. The Overseer's minion hat was indeed uploaded to the Roblox model library on October 8th, 2011 by the once prolific retexturer Errorless, but if you look closely at it, you may notice that it doesn't actually look like an Overseer item at all. The signature green eyes are nowhere to be found. In the place where it looks like they should be, there's a green jack-o'-lantern face instead. As it turns out, while Errorless did upload this hat in 2011, it actually went unnoticed by the Roblox retextures program for around a year. It was on October 8th, 2012, exactly 1 year after its upload date, that Roblox finally took the model and put it on the catalog as an actual hat. Errorless had actually originally dubbed it Eerie Warrior, likely in reference to the insanely rare Eerie Pumpkinhead Limited, and was pretty disappointed in what Roblox actually ended up naming it. And even if it was a real Overseer item, by the time it was released as a hat, 3 other Overseer items had already come out. The Overseer package, the Overseer general hat, and the Overseer's eye. Another little lore drop here, by the way. This hat's description reads, "You must kill him to become him." I guess the Overseer's hierarchy operates on the Santa Claus logic.
That's what this movie's about. This idea that this dude, Scott Calvin, just this random guy, accidentally killed Santa, put on his clothes, and then he just is Santa now.
The last Overseer item to be released in 2012 was the Overseer's bow, which looks really cool for a simple bow, but unfortunately it doesn't really work. It fires green flaming arrows, and the arrows do damage, but you can't aim them. They just always go in the same direction away from the bow, and this rapid fire ability mentioned in the description just doesn't work. When it was working though, it was a pretty well-liked gear. Now, oddly, despite the fact that all 5 Overseer items released in 2012 were massive hits, in 2013 we only got 2 additions to the series, both released on the same day. On August 23rd, we got the Overseer Undertaker's hat, which looks okay, kind of like a satanic motorcycle helmet, and the Overseer's axe gear, which surprisingly still works like a charm. It does a lot of damage in a short amount of time, and as an added bonus, whenever you hit someone with it, a mini Overseer's eye appears and shoots them with green lightning. In my opinion, it's one of the better Overseer gears out there, and I'm glad it still works so well. The axe's description also establishes the axe as a favorite weapon of the Overseers. 2015, believe it or not, was the peak year for the Overseers, as we saw a whopping 14 Overseer items make their way onto the catalog. And we got a pretty generic-looking knight helmet called the Overseer Line Leader, and then we got this year's Easter egg basket gear, the Chosen Basket of the Overseer, which costs 5,000 Robux and opened to reveal the Overseer Chosen hat, and this hat is weird. It's a remake of the classic Korblox Chosen hat, with everything about its mesh the exact same except for the eyeballs planted on it. Everything looks pretty okay here. The shade of green they used looks a little off to me, kind of like really bad mint toothpaste, but overall it's pretty alright. And then we get to the description, and it's literally a copy and paste of Korblox Chosen's description. Life in the Overseer lands is not lived, but rather forged. The dark, treacherous land has long since beat weakness out of the Overseers, and the merely strong have been culled over millennia of constant conflict. hat. Individuals who seek to lead the Overseer armies must prove their prowess by making a journey deep under the swampland, and return to present a living emerald to the clan Deathspeaker. Many do not return, but those who do are marked as chosen. Literally all they did was change a couple of locations, change the type of gemstone they have to retrieve, and remove the line about them being a mighty race for some reason. They didn't even change the name of the high rank that they have to bring the gemstone to. It still says Deathspeaker here, and they left a typo in the word swamp. This is quite possibly the laziest description I've ever seen in a 100% Roblox created item, and yet it provides us the most Overseer lore we've gotten yet by far. They live in a dark, treacherous land, they've been around for millennia, they live near swampland, and they have Deathspeakers just like the Korblox Empire, signifying that they might in fact be connected in some way. This has huge implications for Overseer lore, all because some Roblox employee was feeling too lazy to come up with a description themselves and decided to steal one from a 2009 hat. It just goes to show how different the Roblox catalog was all those years ago, and how sadly far it has and had fallen, even by 2015. Overseer Overlord is pretty generic, but its description reads, "The Overseers have many ranks, so that no one ever knows exactly who is in charge. Chaos is their leadership philosophy. May the strongest Overseer win." This love of chaos will be brought up in several more future hats, so it's a pretty important canon aspect to the Overseers. Their favorite thing is when no one knows what's going on. Sounds pretty tiresome, honestly. In 2016, only 9 Overseer items were released, but we did get one of the most popular Overseer items ever, which I'll talk about in a bit. We started out right away on January 15th with the Overseer Collar, a 1500 stock, 300 Robux limited neck accessory. The description reads, "Those eyes see everything. They can't stop seeing things, even if they wanted to." Which confirms what I had already suspected about the Overseers being omnipotent, all-seeing beings, or at least the ones high-ranked enough to wear this collar. We got another generic knight helmet called the Overseer Eye of the General, which is a rank that apparently functions as the general's eyes in the heat of battle. I'm not sure why the general would need that if he's an omnipotent observer and could see everything ever. Maybe it's just redundancy in case someone pours hot sauce on him, I don't know. The Halloween gift explosion was upon us once again, and this year's Overseer-themed gift was the Dominus Praefectus, which cost 31,000 Robux and opened to reveal the Dominus Praefectus. It's not the best of the Dominuses, but I consider all of the Dominuses to be generally good, so even though it's not at the top of the pack relative to its fellow Dominuses, Dominus Praefectus is still a hard-hitting hat, and its owners have made some pretty awesome outfits for it. You can tell by its favorite count that it's a very well-loved hat. The final Overseer item released in 2016 was the Overseer Guardia, which is kind of interesting. Its description reads, "When fierce loyalty is corrupted, dark times lay ahead." If you don't know, this hat is actually part of a series of hats called the Guardia, which has a little bit of lore of its own. The Guardia is suggested to be a race of loyal knights. This description suggests that the Overseer Guardia was a result of a normal Guardian knight getting corrupted somehow. It seems that the Overseers can not only observe people, but control them as well. Before we knew it, 2017 was upon us, and the number of Overseer-related items dropped down once again to just 6, and all of them were pretty weak. While it does have a pretty different vibe from the other Overseer hats, the Overseer Stealth Fighter hat is still pretty forgettable. It does confirm the Overseer's love of chaos, though, as apparently it's these guys' jobs to covertly infiltrate their enemies and sow the seeds of chaos and mayhem among them. On July 20th, Roblox released their gift card items for the upcoming month of August, and they decided to make 3 of them Overseer-themed. If you got a card from Best Buy, you'd get the now 100 Robux Overseer Wizard hat. Apparently the eyes on this thing can be used to see across space and time, furthering the omnipotence of the Overseers. And if you got a card from EB Games, which is basically Australian GameStop, you'd get the Overseer Mystic. Apparently that big eye on top can only see the future, which technically is true of all eyes, considering that we're always moving into the future, that's how time works, but go off. 2018 brought us 6 more Overseer items. The first, released on April 6th, was the Overseer Wings of Terror. You probably recognize these as OWAT if you're a trader, as these are actually a very expensive limited. At the time of me scripting this video, they're valued at 65,000 Robux on Rolimons. However, what you might not know is that their original price was 20,000 Robux, and I think they only didn't fail because they were so expensive that only rich traders who actually knew how to manage limiteds could afford them. Because they do look really cool, but not 20,000 Robux cool. After that, we got the now limited Crown of the Overseer Overlord, whose description reads, The omnipotent eye that controls every overseer, rich with terrible power. To me at least, this implies that one of the eyes implanted in this crown, likely the big one on top that's emitting green lightning, is used by the Overseer Overlord to control his people. There was one more Overseer item released this year, and it was something we hadn't seen in a while. A brand new Overseer package was created. It was super detailed, even more detailed than the original Overseer package, and it had the potential to look really cool. There was just one teeny, tiny problem. It was an Rthro package. No! That's right, we got the Overseer Overlord Rthro package on November 2nd, 2018 for 2,200 Robux, which is a hefty chunk of change for any package, much less an Rthro one. I think this was made when Rthro was first being introduced and Roblox didn't realize how much players hated Rthro and wouldn't even pay close to that amount for it. To be honest, when it's at the correct proportions, this package doesn't look half bad. Since it's entirely covered in armor, just like a lot of classic Roblox packages are, it looks pretty passable as an actual Roblox avatar in a crowd. But don't get too comfortable just yet, because 2019 was coming up, and Roblox was about to release some packages that were much, much worse. On January 18th, 2019, and April 6th, 2019, Roblox released the Overseer Assassin and Overseer Prophet Rthro packages, respectively. These are both only 300 Robux, but unlike the Overlord, they don't have any cool armor. They're just wearing normal fantasy clothes. When these are in the game, with their Barbie-esque body parts and unusually realistic faces exposed, it suddenly hits you how little these look like actual Roblox avatars. Everyone else looks like the classic LEGO people that everyone thinks of when they think of Roblox, while these avatars look like free asset flips from the Unity marketplace. The only good thing these Rthro packages have done is drop a hefty amount of lore. The assassin's description reads, "An assassin has complete lack of fear, abandoning their emotions to fulfill their master's bidding, thus becoming a lethal warrior for the Overseer." The prophet's description reads, "Prophets are the keepers of secrets, making them a conduit for forbidden knowledge. They tamper with the power of none, practicing the art of sorcery and increasing their psychic abilities. Their strength lies with bending the wills of those who proclaim themselves as heroes and champions." That's very interesting, and I have a feeling it'll be able to be tied back to the group-based lore pretty well, which is great. Finally, we had two more Overseer accessories released in 2019. First was the most popular and well-known Overseer item to ever be released on the catalog ever, the Overseer Oversleeper Terrible Teddy. This item is known as a favorite of rogue gangsters and e-daters because it's a cute fuzzy thing made for kids turned into a scary monster, which of course makes it super edgy and cool. It was also, for a while, one of the only accessories that you could wear as though you were holding it in your hand, which made it very desirable to people looking to do something new with their avatar. But nowadays, it's mostly for the edgelords. It's also a little sad in my opinion that this is the most popular Overseer accessory, when its relation to the Overseers is superficial at best, and there are so many cooler Overseer items than it out there. It's like when a YouTuber's main content is well thought out video essays that they pour hours and hours of work into, but their most popular video with millions of views is some random meme they made 7 years ago. And lastly came the Overseer Berserker. The lightning is super cool and the horns make it look big and intimidating, but the generic name and description make it ring kind of hollow. A hallmark of the modern Roblox catalog. And believe it or not, that's where the Overseer series ended. By the time the Berserker released on August 1st, 2019, the reign of UGC accessories was nearly upon us. And once that happened, the flow of Roblox created items slowed to a crawl and no more official Overseer items have been created since. A couple of UGC creators have gotten away with publishing their own Overseer themed items recently, but even if they were official, their names and descriptions don't really help the lore in any way, so they're kind of meaningless. With UGC set to overtake the entirety of the catalog pretty soon, it's only a matter of time before the actual lore behind the Overseers becomes a distant memory, which is why it's important that we collect it all together and keep it on record as soon as possible. Where else besides the accessory line can Overseer lore be found? Well, as I mentioned earlier, there was at one time a massive community effort to establish an official group for the Overseers and start making lore for them. I remembered one of the Loreverse higher-ups mentioning it to me when I was interviewing them for my big Loreverse video. So I did a bit of searching, and I found it pretty easily. The group is called the Overseer Empire. Its description states that it's currently in storage and not active, and it's owned by a user called Bloxtaz. That rang a bell for me. Bloxtaz, as it turns out, is one of the higher-ups of the Loreverse project. He's a high rank in the Korblox Empire, as well as in the Knights of the Rising Phoenix, which is the name that the Knights of Redcliff go by nowadays, and he actually complimented me on my Loreverse video. Well, sort of, so I knew he'd have some interesting information to give me. He was able to link me a couple of interesting games. One is the Beacon of the Expanse, a cluster of chunks of rock floating around in green space, which is meant to be the domain of a powerful Overseer Lord, and the other is an unnamed, unfinished brick tower with nothing in it that was going to act as a capitol building. The Beacon of the Expanse contains a tower called the Spire, which contains clickable books chock full of lore. He also referred me to a person called Zirky, who is a previous owner of the group and currently acts as another higher-up of the Loreverse project. And I had actually already interviewed him for my previous Loreverse video, so he was well acquainted with me, and was able to give me a lot more information, as well as a couple more places and even a few subgroups that I hadn't even known about. Additionally, I was able to find a large amount of old Overseer Empire-related conversations and guides in the ever-helpful Froast's forum archive. At this point, I'm near 100% certain that I've exhausted every Overseer-related resource possible, learned almost everything there is to know about them, meticulously gone over every accessory, every old forum post, every game, and reached out to every old member that can be reached out to. And now, all that's left to do is connect the dots. So, without further ado, this is my best approximation of the official lore of the Overseers. Long, long ago, longer than any Robloxian could ever remember, when time itself was nothing but void, the ancient god Irakonan was born. He floated around in the void for a while until he grew tired of his loneliness and decided to seek out a place that could sustain life, and he eventually found one, the Robloxian realm, home to the gods Roblox, Builderman, Telamon, Clockwork, and others. So it was here that he decided to create a little life of his own. And so, at his will, up from the dirt rose the first member of the Overseer race. His name was Ninja Nick III. Irakonan would go on to create several more Overseers, but Ninja Nick III, being the first and most powerful by far, laid claim to the title of Omnis Videntes, all-seeing, the first Overseer king. He began building a powerful empire out of his fellow Overseers. Their goal? To worship their great god Irakonan by carrying out his will and establishing themselves as an unstoppable presence in the Robloxian realm. For a long time, they were viewed as such by the other empires. Anyone who crossed them would be slain and sacrificed. Even the Korblox Empire feared them, and the Overseer Empire took advantage of this to borrow some of their training strategies. Things went so well for them, in fact, that Irakonan decided to attach himself to the Empire, so he could feel the pleasure and joy they were experiencing as a result of their victories. However, this would prove to be a fatal mistake, as one fateful day, an unknown empire launched a large-scale sneak attack on them. As strong as the Overseers were, this empire somehow was stronger, and they laid waste to the majority of the Overseer Empire, and with it, Irakonan himself. The few that remained were forced to retreat and find a new home. After a long, treacherous journey, they eventually discovered a gigantic cavern of dark stone. It was here that they first established the realm of the Overseer, or as we know it today, the Darkening Expanse. The mystics among them managed to gather together all of Irakonan's remaining presence and crafted into the legendary Irakonan Eye, which keeps watch over the Expanse to this day, helping defend it from any attacks similar to the one that felled the first Overseers. It is also the eye from which the miniature eyes that still adorn the Overseer's armor, accessories, and weapons to this day are crafted. Over the years, many Overseer kings have come and gone. After Omnis Videntes mysteriously vanished during the sneak attack, the strongest remaining survivor, Dark Ultra 000, took over, and he did a great job of whipping the Empire back into shape and building up the Darkening Expanse. Later, in exchange for magically granted ultimate strength, Dark Ultra 000 handed the kingship to one Hulk 1218, who is extremely magically adept. However, he turned out to be a cruel and unyielding dictator, even by Overseer standards, and was eventually overthrown by one Momaz 99. In an effort to keep such a cruel dictatorship from ever occurring again, Momaz 99 would hand-select the very finest members of the Empire at the time, Fisky 56, Dark Ultra 000, and Lord Khalig Shakar, to act as a sort of council of advisors for him, his right-hand men, the very first Eyes of the Order. More kings rose and fell, as did more Eyes of the Order. Things were going well for the Empire, but its growth was starting to stagnate. Nothing new had happened in a while, and the Overseer soldiers were growing restless. But everything would change when Omnis Videntes II took the throne. The Overseer Empire had been ruled by many kings in the past, but Omnis Videntes II was arguably their most powerful king ever, aside from Omnis Videntes I. At one time, he had gone by the name of Zarkanan Zenhard, the greatest mage the Korblox Empire had ever had, able to kill armies upon armies of soldiers with his magic without breaking a sweat. However, long ago, in a massive Overseer siege on the Korblox Empire, the all-powerful Omnis Videntes I had used his godly powers of Irakanan to capture Zarkanan's soul and let it incubate inside an Overseer body, which, long after Omnis Videntes I's mysterious vanishing, resulted in one of the most magically strong beings ever known, who was equally strong physically. As he grew up in the Empire, his strength grew and grew. He grew strong enough to become king in record time, and the elders were so amazed by this that they decided to give him the highest honor an Overseer could hope to receive, the name Omnis Videntes II. And with the help of his most prominent eye of the Order, the almighty Overlord Khalig Shakar, he expanded the Darkening Expanse into not just a fortress complex and a cavern, but its very own plane of existence. It exists in parallel to the mortal Robloxian realm, and it is devoid of light. It can only be seen via the Overseer's magically altered eyes of Irakanan. To those who can see it, it appears as a bleak world of green mist, swampland, dark stone crags, and imposing buildings. He also developed the best training environment for young Overseers the Empire has had to date. Known simply as Agony, it is an especially dark area that surrounds a larger miniature of the Irakanan Eye, which young Overseers can use to hone their powers. It contains well-worn battle arenas, a harsh but fair automated discipline system, a perfect environment for practice spells, some of the most taxing parkour routes ever conceived, and much, much more. Under Omnis Videntes II's leadership, a brand new hierarchy for the Empire was also constructed. Members of the Empire first start out as minions. In the olden days, minions were made out of any fallen foe who the Overseers saw enough potential in to not immediately sacrifice their soul to Irakanan. Their souls were placed into twisted Overseer bodies hewn from the dirt by mages using Irakanan's mystical life-giving powers, they were issued the standard green-tinged chainmail, and they were promptly made to begin grueling training sessions and backbreaking manual labor. Nowadays, however, thanks to the ever-steady growth of the Empire spurred by Omnis Videntes II, the presence of Irakanan in our universe has grown so powerful that anyone who dares even whisper his terrible name shall instantly be formed into an Overseer and whisked away to the Darkening Expanse to begin a life of servitude as a minion. It is only with the help of several extremely advanced enchantments that I, your narrator, am currently resisting the pull to the darkness myself. Life as a minion is grueling, and few have what it takes to survive it for long. However, those that do will eventually be marked as initiates. Initiates must still undertake harsh labor, but less of it than the minions, and more training, the material of which is more advanced and more life-threatening. It is still an incredibly difficult lifestyle, and few of the minions that do make it through to initiate have what it takes to reach the rank of adept. Such a filtration system is constant as one rises through the ranks. Just as few initiates survive the advanced trainings of the adepts, few adepts survive the even more advanced trainings and actual battles of soldiers, few soldiers survive the yet more advanced trainings and battles of knights, few knights survive the abject carnage undertaken by the terrible zealots, few zealots' minds can handle the strain of the magic required to join the widely feared Doom Whisperers, and few Doom Whisperers can properly hone all of their skills at once, physical, mental, and magical, to join the Overseer's most feared and lethal strike force, the Executioners. Thus, the Overseer Empire's main fighting forces are fully comprised of nothing short of the best of the best. But one must be the best of the best of the best in order to progress to the high ranks. It is only after years upon years of servitude, sacrifice, and miraculous feats of battle that an Executioner may be promoted to Major General, and it takes even more to reach the coveted General title. Once one proves their worth as a general, they may choose to either hone all of their built-up strength into mysticism and become a fabled prophet, or they may choose to hone it into battle prowess and become a great and terrible warlord. Or, if they are truly dedicated to their empire, they will keep working just as they did as a general, honing their magical, mental, and physical abilities equally to achieve the highest rank that any Overseer can hope to achieve: Eye of the Order. The chances of any single Eye of the Order becoming king are near zero, because in order for an Overseer to become king, they must kill the current king. And with how strong Omnis Videntes II is, it could be millennia before he is slain. I pray to never meet the being that finally does him in. This path is not the only one an Overseer can go down, though. After his knightship is finished, he may attempt to specialize his skills by applying for one of three important organizations. Firstly, there is the Shadows of the Eye. This is a secretive collaborative group of elite assassins that the Empire dispatches to take out particularly troublesome targets. They're silent as the grave, quick with their blades, and some of the most perceptive and intelligent overseers out there. There's also the Aegis of the Eye. This is an army of royal guards tasked with protecting the high ranks of the Empire by any means necessary. If you see an overseer major general on patrol, it is likely they will have at least a couple of these brave warriors by their sides, and when the overseer king himself shows his face, he will always have a squadron of them at his beck and call. They would lay down their own lives to protect the high ranks in a heartbeat, as they know that said high ranks have proven their worth to the Empire hundreds of times over, and that their loss would be a bigger hit to the Empire than the loss of 1,000 guards. And finally, there is the most important of the three by far: the Ministry of Inquisition. Its members are responsible for political governance, record-keeping, teaching, generally anything more related to bookwork than bloodshed. It is an institution so exclusive that it cannot be applied for. If one has what it takes to join it, they will be called to it by one of its already existing higher-ups. Members start out as acolytes undergoing training from inquisitors, of which there may only be 5 at any given point in time. Only the very best acolytes in the ministry will ever have even a chance of becoming one. There is also one High Inquisitor and one Grand Inquisitor. That role is taken by Overlord Khalig. The Ministry Library, the place where all the Ministry's knowledge is kept, still resides in a building called the Spire in the Beacon of the Expanse, a domain Khalig crafted for himself high in the green misty sky, whose namesake beacon allows one to easily travel between the Expanse and the Robloxian realm if he needs to. Thus, the Ministry has almost every piece of information about and every location within and outside the Empire at their fingertips. It is only by referring to, keeping track of, and teaching past battle decisions, strategies, fighting techniques, spells, and the like that the Overseers can learn from and improve upon what they already have, thus growing their empire. Should the Ministry fall, the Empire shall fall with it. Omnis Videntes II's reign was the best the new Overseer Empire has ever had, and it has shaped the Overseer Empire into a force that could easily rival the combined might of all 4 major Robloxian lore groups at this point. However, for now, that is not their priority. Now that they have a realm of their very own, their main purpose is to resurrect the dead remains of Irakanan that were cast into the void on the day of the original Overseer's defeat and bring them back from the void into the Robloxian realm, which would irreversibly plunge it into chaos and force everyone in the universe to rightfully bend their knees to him once and for all. For many centuries now, Omnis Videntes II has been away from his empire. He has taken up the name Zerki and has spent his time slowly building trust and high standing within all 4 major lore groups, while covertly spreading the seeds of discord and chaos among them. In his stead, he's left Overlord Khalig to take up the Overseer kingship. In keeping with his nature, Khalig has been a very distant ruler. He does not make public appearances often, and when he does, they're brief. No one quite knows what is going on with the high ranks these days. All the Overseers can do now is observe the Robloxian realm with their many great eyes and keep trying to resurrect their god. But one thing is for sure, it could be in a day, it could be in a year, it could be millennia from now, but one day, Omnis Videntes II will return to his empire. And when he does, we'll just have to wait and see. Oh yeah, and there's one more thing I forgot to mention. The Overseers have but one enemy that could possibly stand in their way. One enemy that could topple their empire forevermore. One enemy whose very name would instill worry into the heart of even Irakanan himself. The Undersmeller Empire. So, there you have it. That's the story, near as I can figure out, of the Overseer Empire. This was actually a really fun video to make. I've come to realize while making these videos that I think my favorite part of the process is writing and telling stories to you guys, and this video had me doing a lot of that, so I really hope you enjoyed it. It'd mean a lot if you'd toss this video a like and comment, because that'll confirm to me and YouTube that you actually enjoyed this kind of video and don't think it stinks so bad an Undersmeller minion could smell it from space. Also, about that longer video that I said I'd be making after this video, last video, it is still coming, but I'm now also working out details for a potential other video that, if it goes through, which it probably will have to come before that video, so the next video is probably not going to be that video, but rest assured I am still working on it, and it'll be out as soon as possible. To all the Overseer fans out there, I hope I did your empire justice. I hope the lore I came up with was to your liking. I did extensively check to make sure I wasn't leaving any gaping plot holes or disconnected threads anywhere, but if I did, or if something just wasn't to your liking, feel free to yell at me in the comments about it. And yeah, I think that'll about do it for this one. I've been been Nitrolord, and I will see you all next time. Bye!